The ash fell like gray snow over the refugee camp, coating everything in the bitter dust of a dying world.
Ow.
Jenna Thorne pulled her worn jacket tighter as she walked between the makeshift shelters, her boots crunching on debris that had once been someone's home. The occupation had lasted 3 years now, and Earth's wounds showed no signs of healing. She paused at a vendor stall, trading ammunition for stale ration bars. The old woman behind the counter barely looked up, her eyes hollow with the same defeat Jenna saw everywhere. This was what humanity had become, survivors scraping by in the ruins of their civilization. While their alien conquerors strip-mined the planet for resources, a small figure darted between her legs, nearly knocking her off balance. Anna's hand instinctively went to her sidearm before she realized it was just a child. The boy couldn't be more than 10, his skin bearing the pale blue tint of the Khazari people. Alien refugees were rare in human camps, making his presence unusual. "Please," the boy gasped, his large violet eyes brimming with tears. "You are Jenna Thorne, yes, the one who fought at New Geneva." Jenna's jaw tightened. New Geneva was a name she'd tried to forget, along with all the people she'd failed to save there. "Who's asking?" The boy straightened despite his obvious fear. "My name is Finn. My sister Nora was taken by the hegemony forces last week. They said she was being sent to the war camps on Xandros Prime." His voice broke slightly. "Everyone says you're the only human brave enough to go there." Jenna studied the child's face, seeing desperation mixed with stubborn hope. She'd heard whispers about Xandros Prime, the prison planet where the hegemony sent their most dangerous captives. It was a death sentence with extra steps, and everyone knew it. "Kid, I'm not a hero," she said, crouching to meet his eyes. "It's just someone who's gotten lucky more often than not. Xandros Prime isn't a place people come back from." Finn reached into his tattered clothing and pulled out a small data chip. "This contains everything I could find about the transport routes and guard rotations. Nora helped me gather it before they took her. She knew this day might come." The chip felt warm in Jenna's palm. Around them, the camp continued its daily routine of survival, but she felt the weight of decision pressing down like the falling ash. In the boy's eyes, she saw an echo of her younger self, before the war had carved away pieces of her soul. "Why me?" she asked quietly. "'Cause everyone else has given up," Finn replied. "But you still carry your weapon. You still fight back." Jenna closed her eyes, feeling the familiar burn of responsibility igniting in her chest. She'd sworn off rescue missions after New Geneva, but some promises were harder to keep than others. When she opened her eyes, her decision was made. Captain Rico Valdez spat tobacco juice into the recycling unit and wiped his grizzled beard with the back of his hand. His cargo ship, the Wandering Star, had seen better decades, but she still flew true when it mattered. He studied the woman, sitting across from him in the cramped cockpit, noting the fresh scars on her knuckles and the way her eyes never stopped moving. "Xandros Prime," he repeated, shaking his head. "Lady, I've smuggled contraband past hegemony patrols. I've run blockades through asteroid fields, but what you're asking is pure suicide. That sector's locked down tighter than a vacuum seal." Jenna placed a small fortune in rare Earth credits on his console. "This should cover the risk." Rico's weathered fingers drummed against his chair. He'd been flying the Outer Rim for 30 years, watching the hegemony slowly strangle every free world in their path. His own home colony had fallen 5 years ago. "It ain't about the money, Thorne. It's about coming back in one piece." "The boy's sister doesn't have time for us to find a safer route," Jenna replied. "Every day she spends in those camps, ... "Yeah, I know what happens in those camps." Rico's voice turned grim. He'd seen the broken survivors who occasionally made it back, their minds shattered by whatever horrors the hegemony called rehabilitation. "Fine, but we do this my way.
Oh.
No heroics, no deviations from the plan." The Wandering Star lifted off from the hidden spaceport, her engines coughing like an old man with lung rot. But as they cleared the atmosphere, she found her rhythm, carrying them away from Earth's gray skies toward the star-scattered void. 3 days into their journey, they encountered their first hegemony patrol. Rico's hands flew over the controls, activating false transponders and masking their heat signature. The sleek alien warships passed like silent sharks, their hulls gleaming with weapons that could vaporize his ship in seconds. Cargo hauler Mercy's Dream, requesting passage through Sector 7, Rico transmitted, his voice steady, despite the sweat beading on his forehead. The response came in the clicking, musical language of the hegemony. Rico's translator crackled. To life, state your destination, and manifest human vessel. Agricultural supplies bound for the mining station at Kepler's Rest, Rico lied smoothly. Standard delivery run. Ah! Long minutes passed. Jenna sat motionless in the co-pilot's seat, her hand resting near her weapon. Finally, the alien voice returned. You may proceed. Deviate from approved shipping lanes, and you will be destroyed. As the patrol ships moved away, Rico slumped in his chair. That's just the outer perimeter. Gets worse from here. They navigated through a maze of automated defense platforms and sensor nets, using routes that Rico had mapped during years of careful observation. Each jump brought them deeper into hegemony space, where the very stars seemed colder and more distant. On the fifth day, Zandros Prime appeared on their screens like a cancerous growth against the cosmic dark. The planet's surface glowed with an angry red light, its atmosphere choked with industrial smoke. Orbital stations surrounded it like metallic moons, bristling with weapons and processing facilities. There she is, Rico muttered. The hegemony's crown jewel of suffering. Jenna stared at the prison planet, thinking of a young Khazari girl somewhere in that hellscape. Can you get us down there? Rico activated a hidden compartment, revealing modified atmospheric entry pods. These'll get you to the surface, but the return trip, ... double quotes, he shrugged. Let's just say you better have a real good exit strategy. They prepared for insertion. Alarms began wailing throughout the ship. On the scanner, a massive hegemony dreadnought was moving to intercept them. So much for the easy part, Rico growled, his hands already reaching for the emergency controls. The entry pod screamed through Zandros Prime's toxic atmosphere like a falling star, its heat shield glowing cherry red as Jenna fought to maintain control. Through the small viewport, she could see the planet's surface rushing up to meet her. Endless stretches of crimson sand broken by the dark geometric shapes of prison complexes. The pod slammed into a sand dune with bone-jarring force, throwing her against the restraints. Emergency systems hissed as the cabin filled with acrid smoke. Jenna kicked open the hatch and rolled out onto the alien sand, her lungs burning from the thin, chemical-tainted air. The landscape stretched endlessly in all directions, a wasteland of rust-colored dunes beneath a sky the color of dried blood. In the distance, she could see the angular silhouettes of the prison camps, their towers reaching toward the sullen clouds like accusing fingers. Welcome to paradise, she muttered, checking her weapons and supply pack. The trek across the desert took hours. The sand shifted treacherously underfoot, and the gravity was slightly heavier than Earth normal, making every step an effort. By the time she reached the outer perimeter of Camp Delta 7, exhaustion weighed on her shoulders. It's like a physical burden. The fence was 20 feet of electrified wire topped with razor coils. Beyond it, she could see rows of prefabricated barracks and work buildings. Guards in environmental suits patrolled the perimeter, their weapons sweeping the horizon in lazy arcs. Jenna waited until the patrol passed, then activated a small EMP device that temporarily disrupted the fence's power grid. She cut through the wire and slipped inside. Moving between shadows cast by the harsh floodlights, a hand grabbed her shoulder, spinning her around. Jenna's knife was halfway to the attacker's throat before she realized it was human, or mostly human. The woman had the lean, dangerous look of a survivor, her dark hair cropped short and her eyes holding the kind of hardness that came from seeing too much. Easy there, hero, the woman whispered. My name's Sarah Quinn, and unless you want to end up in a cell next to the rest of us, you better listen fast. I'm looking for someone, Jenna replied, keeping her voice low. A Kesari girl named Nora. She would have arrived recently. Sarah's expression darkened. The blue-skinned kid? Yeah, she's here. Block C, cell 47, but getting to her won't be easy. They've got her in the high-security section, along with the other special cases. Special cases. Prisoners they're experimenting on. The hegemony's got some kind of research program running here. They take the strongest, the smartest, the ones with the most fight left, and they... Zara's voice trailed off. Let's just say not many come back the same. Jenna felt ice form in her stomach. How long has she been here? 3 days, maybe. 4. Time moves strange in this place. Zara glanced around nervously. Look, I've been here 8 months. I know every guard rotation, every weak point, every way in and out of this hell. But breaking into Block C is a suicide mission. I think it's a good thing I specialize in those. Zara studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. There's a work detail that goes near Block C every morning. Prisoners cleaning the administrative complex. I can get you on it, but once you're inside, you're on your own. They move through the camp like ghosts, avoiding the wandering spotlights and the occasional patrol. The prisoners they passed looked like walking skeletons, their eyes vacant, and their movements mechanical. Whatever the hegemony was doing to them, it was working. As they crouched behind a storage building, Zara pointed to a massive structure at the camp's center. Its walls were smooth black metal that seemed to absorb light, and strange symbols pulsed along its surface in patterns that hurt to look at directly. That's where they take the special cases, she whispered. Some kind of processing center. I've seen prisoners go in there, and when they come out. She shuddered. They come out different, broken, like someone reached into their heads and rewired everything. Jenna stared at the building, thinking of Finn's desperate eyes and his sister's courage. Somewhere inside that nightmare facility, a young girl was, fighting to stay human while aliens picked apart her mind. Get me on that work detail, Jenna said grimly. Tomorrow morning? Commander Tobias's cross had been counting days and scratches on his cell wall for 6 months. But when the new prisoner arrived with the work detail, he knew his wait was over. The woman moved differently from the other inmates. Her shoulders weren't bowed by defeat, and her eyes still held fire. During the morning meal of gray protein paste, he maneuvered next to her at the communal tables. You're not here by accident, he murmured, spooning the tasteless substance into his mouth. Word travels fast in a place like this. Someone's asking about the Kasari girl. Jenna glanced at him, noting the faded military tattoos on his forearms, and the way he held himself despite months of imprisonment. What's it to you? Because I've been planning something for weeks, and your arrival just changed everything. Cross's voice was barely above a whisper. There are 47 prisoners scheduled for processing tomorrow, including your blue-skinned friend. After that, they won't be prisoners anymore. They'll be something else entirely. Moved through the administrative complex like a chain gang, scrubbing floors and emptying waste receptacles under the watchful eyes of hegemony guards. The aliens were tall and graceful, their chitinous armor reflecting the harsh artificial light. They spoke to each other in musical clicks and whistles. Treating the human prisoners like domesticated animals, Cross worked beside Jenna, his movements practiced and efficient. The processing center has one weakness, he continued under his breath. The power grid. It's all centralized through a single junction in sublevel 3. Take that out, and the whole facility goes dark for about 10 minutes before the backup generators kick in. 10 minutes isn't enough time to evacuate 47 prisoners, Cross agreed, but it's enough time to start a revolution. They mopped the corridor leading to Block C. Jenna could see the entrance to the processing center through a reinforced window. Kasari, humans, and members of a dozen other species were being herded inside by guards carrying neural disruption. Weapons. She caught a glimpse of pale blue skin and felt her heart clench. There, she whispered. I see her. Cross followed her gaze and nodded grimly. The processing takes 6 hours. Once it starts, there's no stopping it. What if we hit them during? The transfer. He outlined his plan in quick, urgent whispers. That night, as the camp settled into its uneasy routine, Cross moved through the barracks like a ghost. He'd spent months identifying potential allies, prisoners who still had fight left in them, guards who showed signs of doubt, maintenance workers who knew the facility's weak points. By dawn, his network was ready. The uprising began in the cafeteria during morning meal. Cross gave the signal a simple gesture with his spoon, and suddenly 40 prisoners were in motion. They overwhelmed the guards with improvised weapons. In sheer desperation, while Jenna slipped away toward the power junction, the sublevel was a maze of pipes and conduits, teeming with alien technology. Jenna found the central power grid and began placing the explosive charges that Zara had smuggled from the maintenance depot. The facility shook as battles raged above. Emergency lights bathed everything in hellish red. When the charges detonated, Xandros Prime went dark in the sudden blackness. Jenna heard the sound she'd been waiting for. The heavy doors of the processing center grinding open as their security systems failed. She activated her night vision and ran toward Block C, where confused shouts echoed in multiple languages. The prisoners were exactly where Cross had said they'd be, stumbling through the darkened corridors, some still groggy from sedatives. Jenna found Nora huddled against a wall, her violet eyes wide with terror and confusion. "Nora," Jenna called softly, kneeling beside the girl. "Your brother Finn sent me? I'm here to take you home." The young Khazari looked up at her with desperate hope. "Finn, is he... Is he safe?" "He's safe," Jenna promised, helping her to her feet. "But we need to move now." Around them, the revolution was spreading like wildfire through the camp. But Jenna knew they had minutes before hegemony reinforcements arrived, and the real fight would begin. Luna pressed her face against the viewport of the rescue shuttle, watching the blue marble of Earth grow larger against the starfield. 2 months had passed since the liberation of Camp Delta 7, but the nightmares still came every night, filled with the clicking voices of her captors and the smell of the processing chambers. Beside her, Finn slept fitfully in his seat, his small hand still clutching the datapad that contained messages from the other survivors. They'd left behind on the refugee station. The uprising had freed nearly 300 prisoners, but thousands more remained scattered across the hegemony's prison worlds. "Hard to believe it's real," Jenna said quietly, settling into the seat across from them. The mercenary looked different now, older somehow, with new lines around her eyes that spoke of choices made and prices paid. Luna nodded, though she couldn't find words for the complex emotions swirling inside her. Joy at seeing her brother again, relief at leaving Xandros Prime behind, but also guilt for the friends she'd left in that crimson hell. The others who stayed behind to help coordinate the resistance, will they be safe? "Cross knows what he's doing," Jenna replied. "And Zara's got more tricks than a street magician. They'll keep fighting the good fight." The shuttle shuddered as it entered Earth's atmosphere, and Luna watched the familiar patterns of continents emerge through the cloud layer. The planet looked smaller somehow, more fragile than she remembered. The occupation scars were visible even from orbit dark patches where cities had been. Geometric patterns where the hegemony had established their resource extraction operations. At the refugee settlement, crowds had gathered to welcome them. Luna saw human faces mixed with Khazari Altarian, and members of other species who had found sanctuary on the wounded world. Children ran between the adults, their laughter a sound she had almost forgotten existed. Finn threw his arms around her as they disembarked, his grip fierce and protective. "I knew you'd come back," he whispered. "I knew Jenna would find you." Luna held him close, breathing in the scent of his hair and feeling the solid reality of his presence. For the first time in months, the tightness in her chest began to ease. "I'm here now," she murmured. That evening, they sat around a small fire in the settlement's common area. Other survivors shared their stories, tales of capture and rescue, of loss and hope. Luna listened with her head on Finn's shoulder, slowly beginning to understand that healing would be a long journey. An older woman approached their group, her weathered face kind but tired. "You're Luna, aren't you?" The girl from the broadcast. Luna looked confused, but the woman continued. "Your brother's been telling everyone about you for weeks. How you helped the other prisoners? How you kept their spirits up even when the guards tried to break you. Word spread through the underground networks. You've become something of a symbol." "I'm not a symbol," Luna said quietly. "I'm just someone who survived." "Sometimes that's enough," the woman replied. "Sometimes just surviving is the most important thing you can do." Later, as the fire burned down to embers, Jenna stood to leave. Luna caught her arm. "What happens now?" Jenna looked out at the settlement, where families were reuniting and new alliances were forming. "Now you rebuild. You help your people find their strength again. And when you're ready, maybe you help others do the same." What about you? Jenna shouldered her pack, her eyes already turning toward the horizon. Me, I've got a few more rescue missions to run. Universe is full of people who need a second chance. As the mercenary disappeared into the darkness, Luna felt Finn's hand slip into hers. Round them, the settlement hummed with quiet activity, people tending to children, sharing meals, planning for tomorrow. It wasn't the world they'd lost, but it was a beginning. For the first time since her capture, Luna allowed herself to believe that there might be hope after all. The scars would always remain, but they would heal. And maybe in time, she would find the strength to help heal others. The stars wheeled overhead, the same stars that shone down on prison worlds and free colonies alike. But here, surrounded by the warmth of family and community, they looked brighter somehow. It's like promises waiting to be kept.